Going on, people? It's your boy Nando reporting for the Pound for Pound Boxing Show. I'm here with Jermaine, special guest from Faizal, from Lightsout Boxing, and Nick from IQ Boxing. And this is in association of IQ Boxing and Dirty South Boxing. Guys, King Ryan did it.
Oh, get out of here, man.
King Ryan did it. That's it. That's what I'm going to say. Tank, where you at? Where you at?
Oh, don't do it. Don't do it, man. Let's not sign this certificate. Let's not do
it. What? He's not ready, yeah?
Definitely not ready. Definitely
he's not ready. One of you start then. Go on.
Go on, Nick. I'll let you go first, but I've got a lot to say anyway. So.
Do you know what? I'm not a fan of Ryan Garcia personally. I don't believe the hype. I don't believe that he is good enough to beat any of them in that division, the top ones. And today against Luke, you know, there are at points in that fight where Luke was the better fighter. Luke, you know, was picking shots, landing the better shots. You know, for Ryan, someone who's had nearly 220 amateur fights, you know, basic things against a southpaw he should have been doing. He got caught with his feet square, you know, right on the chin, and he was always open for that shot as well. You know, Luke's did something today that, you know, elite fighters would have finished him off. You know, he's found the holes. If Luke believed a little bit more, and I reckon was a little bit more aggressive after the stoppage and the round afterwards, I reckon he would have stopped him. I think Ryan does have, you know, good hand speed and power, but against the more elite fighters in that division, I think they will pick him off and, you know, hurt him and potentially stop him. I didn't see nothing today to show that he is worthy of calling out Tank, you know, or Devin Haney. For me, I like Devin Haney a lot, and I think Devin Haney fundamentally does a lot very, very well. I think Ryan is banking on trying to land everyone with that left hook. He is not a Danny Garcia, i.e., you know, he can do other bits and then land that left hook. You can see today at some points he just wanted to hit Luke hard and try and get him out there. There didn't look like there was any boxing intelligence or IQ there that he could use to get Luke out of there. Okay, it was a good body shot, but for me, it didn't even look like it was a body shot that he had potentially timed or looked to throw. He just threw it in terms of, you know, we're close together, I'm just throwing a shot. I know Nando's smiling and looking at me because, you know, you're Ryan's professional hype man. But
I'm not his professional hype man.
But you know what? I just think today, as much as, you know, people are going on this Garcia train, I just don't think he's ready. I think he needs to be held a little bit longer, get some more experienced fights, and then start calling out these guys. Because for me, people like Tank and Devin Haney, you know, they're different animals. You know, they got a different level of intelligence. They know their way around the ring, and they will expose him with the holes that he leaves. Today, he had his chin up every time he stepped out. He was pulling out with his chin up. For me, you know, that's number one. You don't do that at that level. You know, people going up for world titles don't do that. He talks about that he stopped Luke and whatever. The arguments are, do you know what? I'll give him his credit for stopping Luke because Luke's durable. But some people will argue, you know, Luke's already been beat up by 2-3 elite champions on the way to. No, I'm just saying. I'm not saying this. I'm saying people will say this. I'm not saying it. I'm giving him his dues for stopping him. But some people will say that, you know, was Luke really someone there for him to, you know, to give him a viable, you know, fight in terms of him being, you know, already going through the rounds, you know, what's it, 12 rounds with Loma, 12 rounds with Linares, and so on and so forth. But you know what? He got the W. We can't say nothing. He moves on, innit?
Yeah, oh, well, sorry, go on, Jermaine, go for it, bro.
Yeah, I mean, great stoppage. I mean, I'm not gonna slate him for the body shot. It was a good shot, get me. But like Nick said, and there's flaws where I've seen his game where elite fighter, like I said with Nando before this fight, if he gets in there with an elite fighter, you talk about your top threes in that division at 135, he's getting stopped. I honestly believe he can't come in there with Teofimo Lopez and do that, leave himself open for shots like that. That left hand we got caught with. If that's Tank, it's good night, mate. How many times has Tank knocked out guys with that left? How many times did he knock guys like he knocked out an experienced fighter in Leo Santa Cruz with an uppercut like that? You can't mix with them guys. That he's not ready yet, honestly. Like, I don't know if he just didn't show Luke much respect, or or he just thought he was going in there fighting a YouTuber. I don't know, but he was just went in there. He got too relaxed. And I think another thing is what I saw is there's a bit of a language barrier between him and his coaches as well. His dad's passing on a lot of information. Sometimes he went in there like he was ignoring his coach as well. And I don't know. I think that I just see a bit of flaws in there where if he gets in there to someone like Tank or Lopez or even Devin Haney, he will get stopped. He will get stopped.
I think you got to look at it in two ways. Obviously, some people are quite critical of the performance, but I think two things now happen. That is the making of his career, or a lot of the the Lomachenkos, the Haneys, the Teofimo Lopez's, the Tank Davises. They look at that and think, yeah, if you're getting dropped by someone like Luke Campbell, imagine what we can do to you. But I think he needed that. We needed to see what Ryan Garcia is like in that situation. And don't get me wrong, there'll obviously be people that are going to criticize him for getting dropped in the second round against Luke Campbell, but I think he's still got to give him credit for getting off the canvas. He's up against it after getting dropped in the second round, but he showed massive courage. He got back up and he done the business tonight. So that could make him a better fighter, and that's a learning curve fight. And as I mentioned the last time we come on here, the Dubois and Joyce fight, Dubois never had that middle fight. Now he's had that middle fight. We've seen what Garcia's like when he's under pressure, when he's coming off the canvas. So I think that'd be good for his career. Don't get me wrong, nobody likes to be dropped. But now it's up to him to improve on what happened to him tonight in terms of getting dropped and making sure that doesn't happen. But I do agree with you guys. He doesn't beat any of the elite fighters at 135 based on that performance. Credit to him for stopping Luke Campbell tonight. But there is massive room for improvement. And I think the likes of Oscar De La Hoya, and we know that he works with Canelo, they'll work on that and they'll drum it into him tonight. Say, listen, you got away with it tonight, but against these elite fighters, they won't let you get away with it. They'll finish you. And you mentioned Tank's knockout over Leo Santa Cruz, and I reckon if Tank was in there tonight, they'd put him away. But it's a learning curve, and I'm glad that's happened to him because now we've seen that side to him. What's he like when he's under pressure, when he's getting off the canvas? And he took it well, and he got back up, and he did the job. Lomachenko never stopped Luke Campbell, so let's give a bit of credit to Ryan Garcia, but there is massive room for improvement.
We said about obviously Lomachenko never stopped Luke Campbell, neither did Linares, but Mendy did. So he's capable of being stopped. It's not like he's not being stopped by these elite fighters, but he's being stopped by someone like Mendy. So it's not nothing of a surprise. But like what I thought of Ryan Garcia today was, I don't know, there's a lot of arrogance in there as well. The way he was going in there, didn't respect his power, and then that's why he really got dropped. He dropped his arm, and he got caught with a great shot. But I believe, like I said, if he's in there with Tank, he dare not talk about the takeover Lopez. He cannot talk about fighting someone like Lopez. You see that he didn't mention Lopez's name. He mentioned Haney. He mentioned who else did he mention? Obviously Tank. But he never ever mentioned Lopez's name because he can't mix with this guy. Man. He'll kill him. He's not ready for it. He needs. Like I said, I do agree with you, Faizal. He needs a bit more fights. I said this to Nando. He needs more fight. He needs more fights in that division against guys, something like a Richard Comey or something like that, maybe, or maybe even a Linares, someone who's been champion.
Even a Gamboa, yes, he'll beat Gamboa, but it's another big test. And listen, there's no way. I mean, I said something during the fight, and someone laughed at me, but fair enough. Obviously, everyone's got an opinion. I see a lot of Chris Eubank Jr. in him. He's got a lot of. He fights with his heart on his sleeve. I thought he was a bit reckless in the beginning of the fight, and I said it at the end of the first round. He's leaving himself quite open, which is why he got knocked out. Now, if he sort of cuts that out in his game, fights a bit more clever, takes his time, because it was pretty obvious from the get-go that he wasn't looking to, stay in there for long. He wanted to finish the fight off as quick as possible. And when you fight someone like Luke Campbell, who's got an amateur pedigree, you're in for a long night's work. There's no such thing as getting rid of Luke Campbell straight away. So there's room for improvements, but I do still think maybe another 1-2 more fights before you fight the likes of the Gervonta Davises and the Teofimo Lopez, the Devin Haneys, even the Lomachenkos. And people say about his arrogance. I watched an interview of him on DAZN, and he's talking about a fight with Manny Pacquiao. You need to conquer 135 before you move up to another 2 weights to fight a guy like Manny Pacquiao, is one of the best fighters of all time, in my opinion. So the arrogance does need to come down. But listen, credit to him. There's a lot of things to work on, and I do hope De La Hoya, Canelo, Eddie Reynoso, they get it into his head and say, listen, this thing out. going forward.
I saw that interview with Pacquiao. He never said he wants to get in the ring with Pacquiao because he thinks he's going to beat him. He never said he even would beat him. He literally said, that's literally my idol growing up. And before he retires, I would love to get in the ring with him. Whether he wins or he loses against Pacquiao, I think he will lose. Obviously, he's too big for him anyway. But yeah, I agree. Only about the arrogance about Chris Eubank Jr. He's a better fighter than Chris Eubank. Eubank is the biggest hype train since David Price in this country. And I'm not one of the guys. When George Groves beat him, I thought, mate, like I was so happy with that. I was so disappointed in the girl, but that's a different story anyway. With Ryan Garcia, for me, I think a lot of people hate him mainly because of this whole YouTube thing. Like, it doesn't matter what the kid does. Like, I don't think people are ever going to give him the respect that he needs, that he deserves, what he does in the ring. Yeah, he got dropped by Luke Campbell, but he got straight back up. It looked like it didn't really faze him. And I agree, look, jokes aside, I agree with Jermaine. There's a lot of flaws in him I saw tonight that he's not ready for those top three yet. But
wait. So now he's not ready for Tank now?
No. Hold on. For me, I think he needs about 2 fights before he fights Tank.
Oh, so he's not ready for Tank now? You said he was ready for Tank now. Before this fight was made, you said he's ready for Tank. So now you're trying to retract your words. Listen, you know full well. Just like I told you with Lopez, yeah? Just like I told you Lopez when he beat up Lomachenko. You know the same thing will happen with Tank.
I have never said Ryan Garcia would beat Teofimo Lopez. I've never mentioned them two.
You said he beat Tank, though. You said he beat Tank, and now you're retracting your words.
Tank is a different story to Teofimo Lopez. Lopez will kill Tank. Let's be honest right now. Tank is another guy, I think, in my opinion, is overrated. Hold on. Let me say something about Tank, and I said this to Nick in a voice note as well. People are getting too hyped about Tank. 24 fights. He's only fought 3 good fighters. Santa Cruz, Petraza, and Gamboa. Who's the other 22? Liam Walsh. Who the hell did he beat, bruv? Who else did he beat? Like, he needs to fight more tougher opponents as well. 24 fights. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with that statement. But yeah, in terms of what Tank has done in those fights and what Ryan has done in those fights, I think the difference is Tank has at least shown a caliber of boxing within those fights and different views and different perspectives of boxing than Ryan has. Do you know what my biggest thing with Ryan is? I'll be honest with you. Ryan, for me, if he carries on doing what he does, he's going to turn into a Deontay Wilder. He's just going to rely on knocking people out. And he's going to become one of those guys in that division who, well, if you can't knock you out, then he hasn't got much to offer. I think Ryan, with the team that he has around him, can become a good boxer. Don't get me wrong. If you're around people like Canelo and Oscar De La Hoya every day, you are going to pick up stuff. We're talking about, Oscar, who is a legend, whether you like him or not. And you got Canelo, who is pound for pound legend, whether you like it or not. So and he's around. Well. Huh?
And B-Hop as well. You got Bernard Hopkins.
He's got Bernard Hopkins there as well. So he's got 3 elite world champions in his camp that he can learn from. I'm not saying he's going to be crap or whatever, and he's not going to do anything. I just think he's going to become really, really, gung-ho on this power and wanted to go and take people out. And we saw it today. First round, like Faizal said, he came out, wanted to take out Luke. And I'm pretty sure in the corner, they would have said to him, just go feel him out for the first round, go and see. Because he kept on trying to land that big left hook. And that's not going to... Look, Luke's experience, he's been around the game. He can see shots like that coming. I just think today, you are right. It was a fight that he needed. And it is good that he he went down and came back up. We always want to see fighters with heart get up and respond to being knocked down. And he did that. But no, like you said, Nando, I don't think, he's ready for those guys just yet. I agree with you. Tank does need to go and have some other fights against, 100%. Against some worthy names, So does Devin Haney, if you're being honest as well. None
Haney's
of them
only fought Gamboa. Who's he fought in 25 fights?
Exactly.
No one.
None of them have fought, people of any pedigree. But I think we're now at that point in boxing where these young guys are gonna fight each other regardless of whoever they fought, and whoever takes the L will just go fight somebody else and make their way come up. Me personally, I would like to see Tank against Loma. That's a fight I want to see. That's Loma's coming off a loss. It'll be a good fight for Tank to come and fight him against. I think that's a good fight in my opinion. If Devin Haney and Garcia fight, in my opinion, that's another good fight because they've got rivalry from the amateurs. They've known each other on the way up, so it's a good building fight for both of them. But I think none of them are ready for Teofimo. You know, he's number one. Like he's got a level of tenacity within him that I don't think none of them can match at the moment. And he's got a level of boxing IQ to him it supersedes all of them. So, you know, they've got a bit of a way before they get there to him. But, you know, Ryan did the job, whether we like it or not. As much as it burns me to say it, he won. And, you know, you can't take that away from him. Whether he looked good or not, he's got the W. And he can go away, hopefully learn from the mistakes he made in that fight, and then come better. But, you know, the lockdown, we've got to give Luke credit. Luke came with the feint downstairs and came over the top, you know. And that will, most southpaws will have that advantage against an orthodox fighter.
The thing I said to Jermaine before as well, I said it about Canelo, and it happened. And I'm going to say about Ryan Garcia. For me, the day that them two leave Oscar De La Hoya is when people start giving them more respect. You see Canelo, the moment he leaves, he was with Oscar De La Hoya, and they were talking about, I can't remember what fighter he was meant to fight now in December. I think he's his next opponent. Yildirim. What's his name?
Yildirim, the one who...
and everyone was like, oh, here we go. Another easy W, another cherry-picking opponent. The moment he left Oscar De La Hoya and they announced it, boom, he puts it on social media. I will announce my opponent tonight. He said it, and he picked the hardest fight, probably the toughest opponent, actually, the second toughest after Billy Joe Saunders is Callum Smith. And I don't think with Oscar De La Hoya, he would have done that. So with Ryan Garcia, if you look at his 20 fights, apart from Finesca, he hasn't fought nobody. So for me, I think it's Oscar De La Hoya that has given these fighters a bad name in a sense of wrapping them in cotton wool and not letting them fight tough opponents. So for me, Ryan Garcia needs to leave that promotion. It's the same as Tank. As much as people rate Tank, he hasn't got a great fan base. Why? Right. Floyd. Same as Adrian Broner. No one liked him. Why? Because he was with Floyd. If you're around these arrogant people like Oscar and Floyd, you're going to pick that up and you're going to be like them. You're going to be a bigger arsehole than them because they grew up in a time where there was no social media as much as now. And now with social media, the way you come across and the shit that you put up, like people, I don't understand what the big deal was him putting up videos of doing like speed bag and stuff, showing his speed, and people hating on that. Apparently he's getting money for that. If my man's getting paid, why are people hating on that? You know what I mean? People should focus on what he does in the ring. So for me, I know for a fact, if tonight he didn't get dropped, but he was still open, but he still stopped Luke Campbell, people will still be going at him. People will still be going at him because there's an agenda against him. That's how it is. That's the way I see it. It's the same as it was for Broner. It was the same for other fighters as well.
I think now we're at a point where, obviously, when you look at what's going on in the world now, these fights, whether they're at 135, 147, 160, 168, the heavyweight, these big fights now, they need to happen because we don't know what the future of the sport is. We don't even know what the future of the society is. So I agree with what you just said. I mean, Canelo, he becomes, what was it, a 4-weight world champion after beating Kovalev, and then there's, rumors that he's going to fight Yildirim. And I think Canelo looked at it from that point and thought, nah, you know what, something's not right here. There's potentially 4 or 5 fights out there for me that will make me good money, that will draw crowds in, and that will define my legacy in the sport. And I think he's done the best thing by leaving Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya. Now, the question you've got to ask yourself with De La Hoya now is, he's lost his main asset in Canelo, the biggest face in boxing, I think he is. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people think the same. So De La Hoya is now at a point where he's got to be careful with how he nurtures Ryan Garcia. Does he put him in with someone like a Linares or a Gamboa, or does he think Devin Haney, Tank, if he can get the Teofimo Lopez? I would like to see him fight someone like a Gamboa or a Linares, but I think because of what's happened with Canelo, I don't think De La Hoya is going to wait around anymore. I think he'll put him straight into the deep end. And it's going to be interesting because this 135 division right now for me is going to be the best division this year. And you've easily potentially got 4 or 5 good fights to be made. The question is now, which fight do you make next? You say about Gervonta Davis not being tested. For me, Ryan Garcia had the test and he come through it. Now, whatever you think of it, whatever you think of Ryan Garcia, he's answered that question of can he get up from the canvas? You know, can he go on after being under pressure? And he's proved it. I want to see Tank be put in that same situation. And this is why I think now maybe a lot of people will edge to Garcia having the upper hand. So for me, if you're going to make a fight now, if you're going to make the perfect fight, the fight now is Tank Davis, because one, he doesn't fight enough for me. Fighting once a year and fighting guys that, you know, are way past it, that's not good enough. If you really want to build this kid up and push him to that world elite level, then you need to put him in these fights, because fighting fighters like Santa Cruz, who 4 or 5 years ago were world quality operation fighters, not good enough. So now's the right time for me that you make these fights and you make these big fights. What's an O in boxing? You lose your O and what? It doesn't mean you can't come again. But now you need to make these 50-50 fights. And we need to know who really is the face of the 135 division and who is the man that's going to challenge Teofimo Lopez next.
I'll tell you one guy I would like Ryan Garcia to fight next. And it makes sense because Teofimo Lopez next is set to fight the guy that beat Lee Selby, the Australian guy.
Oh yeah.
So he's next. Apparently, he's next. The other
he's mandatory. He's mandatory. He's mandatory
for the IBF title. He's next, right? He's got 3 mandatories. Teofimo Lopez. He's got Ryan Garcia, James Tennyson, and this Australian guy. I would like Ryan Garcia to fight James Tennyson.
Ooh, that's a good fight.
Two mandatories putting their interim titles on the line. The winner goes off to fight the winner of Teofimo Lopez and the Australian. Teofimo Lopez, in other words. But
I can't see Oscar making that fight.
I wouldn't be surprised.
There's a lot of for me. There's no reward. There's no real reward in winning that fight.
Yeah.
There's a big risk and no reward, because if he loses that fight, he lost the fight who people will be saying, "Oh, you lost to this guy." He's not well known over in England, and he's not elite fighter. He's not a top 3 fighter in that division. So to what can you really gain from fighting that guy? Like for me, I would like to see one of these guys fight Linares, Lomachenko, someone like that, someone who's been champion, like a Richard Comey as well. I'd like to see them fight these sort of guys. That's just my opinion. I want to see them fight guys who've won world titles and fought at elite level, and then move on to fight likes of your Tanks, the likes of your Lopez, and so on.
You know what? It wouldn't surprise me, right? And this is how funny boxing is, right? It wouldn't surprise me if Lopez went up to super lightweight. It really wouldn't, because I've seen an interview where he's talking about a fight with Josh Taylor. That's how funny boxing is, right? And because let's be completely honest with each other, right? He's beat the man in that division, Lomachenko. You know, he's ended that reign. And nobody, even including myself, gave Teofimo Lopez a chance. I was sat in another way up, and
Jermaine did.
I did.
It wouldn't surprise me.
You know I did that though.
People like this right now, because that's how crazy boxing is. It wouldn't surprise me. But like I said, you've got 5 or 6 good potential fights being made, and for the world of boxing, you know, for the fans, I hope they do make them, and I hope De La Hoya gets it right this time, because Ryan Garcia's got the potential, he's got the talent. You know, he's shown the heart tonight of it, and we needed to see that. But does De La Hoya take him to that next level? Does De La Hoya put him in with the right people? So it's interesting times in this 135 division right now.
I would love Teofimo to go to that division, only for one reason. If he beats Josh Taylor, then it's Teofimo Lopez versus Ahara Davis. Imagine that. Because he's the WBC interim champion, isn't he?
Yeah,
so he's in line to fight the winner of Josh Taylor and Ramirez. As much as I would love to see Josh make him quit again,
I would love to see Lopez go fight Jack Catterall. Jack Catterall's a guy that's not getting a look in, and Jack Catterall is a very good fighter. And if it wasn't for the whole Ramirez, Josh Taylor undisputed thing, you'd see Josh Taylor fighting Jack Catterall, and Jack Catterall is a very good fighter. And I think Jack Catterall is another fighter that's not getting a look in right now. And if you look at his performances against Ahara Davis, you'll know Jack Catterall is a very, very good fighter. But unfortunately, he's underneath that line where he's not backing. And if Josh Taylor beats Jose Ramirez, which I think he will, there's no way Josh Taylor will stay at super lightweight. He'll move up to 147 without a doubt.
Yeah. But me personally, I don't want Lopez to go up. I want him to be undisputed. I'm about this undisputed life. I am sick and tired of people being unified and then going up. Like, do a Crawford, be undisputed, hold every belt, then go. For me personally, I'd like him to fight. If it's Devin Haney, fight Devin Haney, be undisputed, and then go up. For me, it means a lot more. Maybe I'm a bit more old school. Like, I like my undisputed champs. You know, I respect people. I respect people like Usyk. I know, Nando, you might fall off your chair with me saying this, but you know, I respect the Usyks. You know, Evander Holyfields of the world, the Crawfords, people who've gone and dominated their division. I think that's what boxing should be. You should aim to be the best in your weight, then go up, not just win one of these world titles because there's about 50 of them flying around right now, and then saying I'm going to go up. As much as, you know, Lopez is talking about potentially going up and maybe fighting Josh Taylor or whatever, let Josh Taylor and Ramirez have their fight, become undisputed. You sort out your division and then go up. You know, do what TC did. You know, win my division and then come up and start coming straight for the big boys straight away. None of this, you know, finding my way in. But I think
it's such a shit. Sorry to disturb you, but it's you know what, this undisputed thing, right? It's such a shame because if you look at, for example, 154, you've got, I believe it's Jermaine Charlo who's got 3 of the belts and Teixeira's got 1. That's one fight that will, you know, crown an undisputed. 147, you've got 3 world champions. I believe Manny Pacquiao is going to vacate. You know, I believe Crawford will fight him next. Then you Spence fighting Crawford. There's another undisputed clash. Then you got Ramirez and Taylor. That's another. We're not far off. I think we've got a good 4 divisions, even the heavyweight division, where we've got potentially 4 undisputed fights. And these fighters, they think to themselves, now, you know what? I don't want to cement my legacy. I'll just move up for a payday. Like, one thing that really baffled me, my favorite fighter right now is Errol Spence. But he's more interested in moving to 160, collect a payday to fight Canelo, but he doesn't want to fight Crawford. And he's coming out with ridiculous things like, oh, if I fight Crawford, I'm going to give him a 60-40 split, or I'm going to give him a 70-30 split. No, Crawford, what, 3-weight world champion? If anything, it should be Crawford that takes the higher split, but that's how crazy boxing is right now. And I just think this undisputed thing, it means nothing to these fighters no more. I just think they're more interested in their paydays and they don't want to cement that legacy in the sport.
Do you know what? I think that's more the promoters than them, because I think fighters will fight anyone you put in front of them. But obviously, you know, if we take Spence, for instance, anyone dangles the Canelo carrot in front of you, you know the check's going to be huge. You know, him and Crawford fighting is not going to be a massive, like, let's be honest, they haven't got the biggest fan base between them. You know, Crawford when he fought Kell, it wasn't screaming, oh, you know, there's a whole heap of fans and a whole heap of people who were interested in that fight. You know, as boxing purists, you enjoy watching them fight because we're boxing fans, but, you know, a casual fan will pay to see a Canelo because they hear Canelo pound for pound and what Canelo does. And, you know, fighters are drawn to that. Look, Garcia went up to fight him and went to go fight Spence. And that was a silly fight, but it was because it was, let me move up. People will watch me go up and, you know, I'll get a good payday from it. And I think promoters are
legacy with that.
Yeah, but promoters are exploiting that. Promoters are not, you know, think back in the day, champions fought champions. Like, if we go back to the middleweight division when we had Hagler, Hearns, Duran and all of them, they fought each other. Why? Because you wanted to be the best. Now people are happy, and, you know, and I don't mean this to no disrespect to anybody who's a champion, but some people are happy to be an email champion, or some people are happy to be an intercontinental or whatever it is champion, and then move on.
Name some names.
I'm not naming their names.
Haney,
I'm not trying to get
Haney, innit?
No. You know what? At least with Haney, do you know what? Haney's willing to fight, so I can't really say nothing about him. But there are guys who are WBA regular champions or whatever, you know, holding on to their belts, not looking to go and fight the big guys in their division. You know, like, boxing's become a thing of, let me pick up one of these belts and, you know, let me move on. You know, was it Mike Tyson or someone the other day was saying, you know, no, it was Floyd actually. Floyd was saying, there's too many belts. It's silly. Get rid of them. Get rid of them and just have the one world champion and let people fight each other. And we'll get back to the good days. Because at the moment now, even look, like Ryan Garcia won tonight. And then they gave him his WBC, was it Intercontinental got his title. And then they gave interim belt. And then they gave his trainer that towel, that world title towel thing. See, all of that just drives me mad because it's just a mockery. The champion is Devin Haney, whether we like it or not. After that fight, they should have just announced, yeah, Devin Haney's next because I'm fighting you because I want that belt. There should be no celebrating getting that belt, because if we go back in time, that's like Hagler and Hearns fighting for an interim belt and then being happy over it. Like, it's mad. Like,
I think the excitement of people winning interim belt means you're mandatory for a world title. I don't think they're celebrating because they got a belt. I think it's more like, that belt is more like a certificate kind of. Let's call it a certificate. You are now
Nando, back in the day, you got a T-shirt and a medal that said you're number one. Number one. Now go fight for it. Now,
I see the post right now, bro. So they're asking about belts. That's the thing.
I saw Ryan Garcia, I think when Devin Haney first came back, step into the ring with this WBC belt. I was mad baffled. I was like, why are there two belts in there? And until I realized it was an interim. And I'm like, come on, this is silly. Like, people are walking around parading like they're world champions. Like,
well, Junior done the same thing, didn't he?
It's like, it's mad. Like, get rid of all of these belts, man. Just let the champs fight the champs. We will get more exciting fights. Unfortunately, I think promoters are steering fighters to bigger paydays that don't necessarily make sense, and we're not getting the good fights. That's why, as fight fans, sometimes you're disgruntled. You're seeing particular fights, you're like, why am I watching this? Like, why?
Because we love it.
Yeah, we do love the sport. But
I agree, though. I do agree, because I think there should be one champion. Like Dante Wada always says, one face, one name, one champion. And having all these belts getting paraded out there is just too much. You can't keep up with it. You cannot keep up with it. And for me, like, obviously, Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko, who was the man. Yeah. And Devin Haney's world champion because he got sent an email told he's world champion. He didn't actually go out there and fight for it. That's the thing where we're going wrong, because guys getting gifted world titles for not going out there and earning it. And for me, that's why I see it now. I'm thinking, why has Lopez not been given the right as undisputed champion now? So I think, for next for me, Lopez should be going to fight. Haney next, and cement it down as undisputed champion, if that's the case.
It's confusing because he gets announced as the first ever undisputed lightweight champion, and then a couple of weeks later, Eddie Hearn's coming out and saying, "Hold on, no, you're not, because the WBC world champion in that division is Devin Haney." Like, it's confusing for the fans as well. Like, you know what, right? This whole vacating and give the belt to this guy, it just goes to show you the manner of the sport is it's on a decline, because back in the day, right, I'm talking about the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, you'd have to kill to become a world champion.
Exactly.
And regardless of what we think about Deontay Wilder, he hit the nail on the head. Probably the most smartest thing he's ever said in his career. One face, one name, one champion. There's no point X carrying this belt, Y carrying that belt, and said, like, how are you supposed to win in this sport? Simple fact is, look, for me, the two biggest belts in boxing are the IBF and the WBC. Now, we know the WBA, the WBO, and even the IBO to some point will never ever get thrown in the bin, because governing bodies make their money out of that. So,
and those belts are for Eubank as well.
Exactly. Who, let's be honest, carries the IBO around in Brighton nightclubs and Brighton football stadium. But the point I'm trying to make is, though, right, either give all the belts to one name or just have one belt. Stop confusing boxing and let the fans enjoy the sport and have a real daddy of each division. Because if you got 2, 3, 4 names of each division that is a world champion, you're just confusing the sport. And, the sport, unfortunately for me, it's on a bit of a decline right now because of how confusing it becomes with mandatories and interims and regular champions. And now you've even got a new division called the Bridgerweight division, and you've even got the franchise. Stop confusing the sport. Like, for God's sake, there's how many divisions in boxing? 16 now. Yeah, and there's how many belts? The way I see it, right, it's always been for me, British, European, world elite level. The Americans can have the NBA, NABF, whatever it's called, that's fine. But for me, it should be your country's belt, which is the British or the NAB, whatever. Then it's the European, and then it's the world title. But the sport don't work in that way no more. And unfortunately, that's promoters and that's money. That's what it's done to the sport, and that's something where the fans are going to have to suffer with how confusing the sport's become over the last couple of years. But again, governing bodies make money through these belts and through these mandatories. So,
do you know what? It's the truth. And my biggest thing is, and I hope You know, I never ever I'm in the position to meet the WBC president, and he sees this and he starts trying to run me. Yeah, but they are the worst for it, because they will elevate a man to a franchise, but they'll make a belt up for anything. Like literally, like, they'll feel bored and be like, "Oh, do you know what? Let's make a belt." Like for the Canelo fight, they made a belt. Like, and then when you were saying about Lopez being undisputed, they've made him the WBC franchise champion. Why? If we know Devin Haney's the champion, just make him fight Devin. But obviously, like you said, it's sanctioning fees. You know, they started doing it, then the WBA went crazy with it, with their regular, their super, and whatever champion. And, you know, we got the Chris Eubank belts, as Nando says, so we keep those for him. They must probably make a belt for him especially.
Yeah, and then you've got the dead belts that Okoli wears everywhere he goes as well. But that's another story.
Allow Okoli, man. Allow him, man.
The most disappointing thing in all this, right? As I look at the heavyweight division, yeah. Fury Joshua hold all the belts, right? Who's that last undisputed heavyweight champion? Lennox Lewis, right?
Lennox.
Britain has now finally got the chance to have an undisputed king.
Yeah.
And Anthony Joshua's answer to that is, I'll just vacate one to make the Tyson Fury happens. Like, why? Why you work so hard for? Just why? We need a king. If you're gonna have one face in one division, it has to be the heavyweight division.
But do you know who's stopping us from seeing undisputed champion? Do you know what government body is stopping us from seeing undisputed champion? What government body is it? WBA.
WBA.
Because they want all these belts and all that crap here. They want another mandatory fight and all that stuff. They're the reason why we're not going to see one champion, because they're the worst for it. They're the worst for it.
Yeah, they force you to vacate because they'll say then you got to fight.
I just say, if the WBC and WBA presidents are seeing this, I don't know these people. If I ever meet you, just know that I'm all for it. Mauricio, you're the man. Just know that WBC all the way, right?
I'm saying it with my chest. I'm saying it with my chest. I want them to see it. I want them to see it.
I personally think there's two stories. There's two sides to every story. I agree with Jermaine. Obviously, the governing body is ruining it. Usyk has apparently come out and said, "I'm willing to step aside to let them fight." He said that. He said already he's not willing to step aside for the rematch. The rematch, I want a title shot. So I get that. You're not going to wait 2 fights. You're going to end up going to fight someone and risk losing your mandatory. You know what I mean? So I get that. For me, the promoter plays a part of it, because think about this: AJ vacates, Usyk's in line, or Parker. One's already signed with Matchroom. The other one, I reckon Usyk's going to sign with Matchroom anyway. The belt comes back to Matchroom. It makes sense, doesn't it? If AJ then loses his belts, which he will, to Fury, he gets to fight 100%. Mate, I will put this shit on the line. Let's go. But anyway, that's a different story. For me, if AJ, when he loses his belts to Fury, he gets to fight Parker or Usyk and becomes world champion again. He becomes freeweight world champion. No, sorry, 3-time world champion. And he plays a smart Eddie Hearn. If that's the plan, that's a smart move, in my opinion.
I'm going to make a statement right now. The Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua fight does not happen in 2021.
I agree with you.
Does not happen.
I think it's a 2022 fight.
Because unfortunately, these days, promoters are the reason why we've not seen Fury versus Joshua. We've not seen Crawford versus Spence. We've not seen Bivol versus Beterbiev. This is the problem we've got with boxing these days. You know what, right? Honestly, I would love for Fury and Joshua to say, do you know what? We don't need these people. We can easily sort the fight ourselves. But of course, it doesn't work like that. So that's where the sport's suffering. And I don't know. I just look at it and I just think, you know, these big now's the big time. Now's the real time to make these big fights. I don't think you're going to be seeing them anytime soon. I will say it now. Fury will fight Wilder next. Joshua will fight Usyk next.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
One of them will lose. Unfortunately, one of them will lose. That's how crazy it is right now.
I do agree with you, because I was also in an interview with Derek Chisora the other week, and he was saying obviously that he doesn't see the Joshua Fury fight happening this year because of what obviously was going on in the contract with Deontay Wilder. He believes that obviously there's going to be a trilogy there. He believes that fight will happen, and obviously he just doesn't see that fight happening. And another reason why is we don't know what's going to happen in terms of this year. The situation we're in, That fight has to be a stadium fight. And where we're, as a country at the moment we're in, the circumstances we're in, I can't see it happening in the UK. I really can't. So where is it going to take place?
Can happen in Dubai.
Yeah, listen, but you need...
I listen, there's no disrespect to the people in Saudi Arabia, but the atmosphere was dead, bruv. The atmosphere was like the Etihad Stadium. It was dead. You can't hear nothing. You couldn't hear nothing. It's mad. Even when AJ came out,
respect for saying that now. Respect for saying that, bro.
You couldn't hear. That's the thing. So it's great that you do it in these other countries, but we got to be real, and there's no disrespect to them. You're not going to get better boxing fans in Dubai or Saudi Arabia or in the Middle East or anywhere. Even in America, they ain't better fans than the UK. Even Americans even say UK have the best fans in the world. I'd rather them go to Ireland and do it there. I'd rather them go to Scotland and do it there. You know what I'm saying?
They're on total lockdown.
Huh?
They're on total lockdown.
If they ease the lockdown, because let's be honest, if this fight happens, the fight isn't going to be until like May, June anyway. So
the fight's not happening. The fight's not happening this year.
No, I'm just saying. But it's a shame the fight doesn't happen. Do you know what the biggest fight this year is going to be? It's going to be the WBC belt. Arm versus Kelbrook live on Channel 5, Hennessy Sport, live at Tiger London, bro. That's going to be the biggest fight of 2021. I'm telling you. This fight is going to happen.
A fight's a waste of time.
Fury fight, right? We saw Fury fight Joshua in front of 90,000 at Wembley Stadium. We don't ever have to hear Carl Froch say, I fought in front of 8,000 at Wembley again. That's the biggest benefit of that fight happening.
Amen to that.
I think Carl Froch is saying that even when he's on his deathbed, it's going to be on his tombstone. Yeah. I fought in front of 90,000 people. He even said it to Floyd. So, he's getting it to say to anyone. But I think Fury is going to fight Wilder again. I really
don't mind Fury Wilder for him. I don't mind Joshua Usyk, but we all know the fight we want.
I don't want to see none of them.
I'll tell you the fight I want to see, and I could see that happening more than Wilder Fury is Wilder Dillian.
I don't want to see that fight either. I don't want to see that fight either. I'm just going to hear bare matches.
Hold on. Would you rather see Dillian Povetkin 2 over Dillian Wilder?
I'd prefer Dillian fight for one title.
Imagine the face-off. Imagine.
I don't want to because I live it. I
obviously Dillian White v Joshua 2 run it back, but obviously that's gonna have to be a stadium fight. And the current situation we're in at the moment, it's not going to happen. That fight appeals to me more than Deontay Wilder does.
That's never going to happen. Because,
I'll be honest with you.
Again, this is the thing. We discussed this last week, Jermaine. How the hell Dillian loses to Povetkin and he goes to number 5 in the WBC? These rankings makes no sense. So the fact that this COVID, I wouldn't call it an excuse. I'm not going to go down that line and say he's making an excuse. He's not ready for the fight, Povetkin. But now I think it's time that he faces someone else that is in the top 5 of the WBC. And Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz makes sense. Dillian White, for example. I can't see Eddie Hearn giving Dillian White a title shot when there's other people right now like Usyk who's in line for a title shot for one of the belts. It just makes no sense. So for me, I'd rather Dillian fight, seeing as Povetkin's not ready, fight someone else who's in the top 5 in the WBC. So it's either Luis Ortiz or Deontay Wilder and climb back up the rankings. You don't even need to face Povetkin again.
I think
Dominic Brazil's quite high up.
I think Dillian White's career got to fight Povetkin again. He's got to get that result right. I think because if he fought, let's say he fights Deontay Wilder and Ortiz and he loses, it's game over, man, for him. And you know what? Because of what he's been through outside of the sport, with the way the WBC's messed him about, I really hope he gets a shot at the world title, whether you like him or not.
Yeah,
he's
100%.
Treated horribly in this.
Don't like him.
He deserves. You know what? He's fighting for money as well. Two fights with Chisora, that fight with Joseph Parker, they were brilliant fights. They're fights I've watched over and over again. But for me, I want to see him fight Povetkin, beat Povetkin, and then I want to see the guy get his shot at the world title because that's a guy that deserves a world title shot, regardless of his defeat. He could have easily sat back and thought, you know what, I'll just sit around and wait and I'll just fight bums and journeymen. But you know what, he's got in the ring, he's taken 50-50 fights, he's won the majority of them, lost to Povetkin. Take the Povetkin rematch, wait for it, beat Povetkin, and then take your shot at the world title. And I hope he wins the world title because the guy's been through a lot in boxing. And the BBC, you know, this whole drug scandal, they've messed him about horribly, and he deserves a world title shot. And I think the sport owe it to him as well because of how long. It's what, 2018 he's been the mandatory for the WBC?
Yeah, 3 years.
You got Dillian saying, yeah, I'll fight him now. What? Because he doesn't hold a world title. Because you need to rebuild your career. Perfect. It makes sense. Fight Povetkin, beat Povetkin, and then get your world title shot.
You know what? If all fighters had the same mentality as Dillian Whyte, we'll see more great fights happen. We'll see more champions. We'll see more champions fights because there's too much politics involved in boxing, where it's like you got a manager saying yes, man, saying you do this, you that, you do that. Like just champions fight champions should be fighting champions, man. As simple as that. And then I just want to see. Like we see back in the day, the best fight the best. And I agree with you, Faizal. Dillian Whyte actually had a world title shot a long time ago.
Exactly.
Long time ago. And the way WBC treat them is a disgrace. I don't care what. I'm not going to hold back my voice. It's been a disgrace. But I believe.
It's probably why Eddie Hearn has sat there right for years. Or get his world title shot. This. Tyson Fury come back and within 4 months he's already got a shot at the world title. So that says something about well. That says something about his promoter as well. If Tyson Fury, who fought Seferi and Pianetta, comes back into the sport, no one's touched his name, no one's interested in fighting him. What's happened in the end? Straight away, he's got a world title shot. What does that say about Eddie Hearn? Why has he not got Dillian Whyte? Within that time, Whyte beat Parker, and he beat Chisora, and he beat Lucas Brown. So why has he not fought for a world title shot yet? That's down to the promoter. The promoter's job is to get him that world title shot. And that's where you got to give credit to Frank Warren because it only took him 4 months to get Tyson Fury back into that contention.
100%.
I think, you know what, to counter that argument, I think even if Tyson Fury hadn't been there and came back today, he would have still got the fight before Dillian just because he was the undisputed champion that vacated, and there would have been more allure to fight him, who dethroned the king, than fight Dillian, who is a live wire. Now, for me, and this is not even a bias, I think for me, you know, prior to the Povetkin loss, and even still now, I think Dillian is one of the most improved fighters in world boxing there is in terms of the people that he's fought since the AJ loss. From where he was when he fought AJ to where he is now, and even when he did box Povetkin, okay, yeah, he lost, but it was one of his best boxing performances to date. Now, if you're any of the belt holders, you don't want to fight Dillian because you're like, he's red hot. He's been in there with world champions, you know, he's been in there with guys who've come after him, and he will give me a problem. You know, Dillian's tall, he can box, he can bang, and you know, he can often take a shot. So, you know, if you're AJ, if you're Deontay Wilder, whatever, you're like, yeah, I'm not really on this right now. So you're going to navigate your way around him. You know, people talk about the Eddie Hearn situation or whatever. You know, for me personally, at the end of the day, I think, you know, Dillian did what he needed to do. I think he knew if he didn't take those fights in which that he took, by the time he got to world level, he may have been a bit short on experience in terms of being there with game opponents. So maybe the time him not having that world title fight has held him in better stead. So when that world title fight does come, you know, he's got the experience in being in there with majority of them. Out of all of them, and I was having this conversation with someone the other day, he's got the best CV out of all of them in terms of people that he's fought. You know, he's got more world champions on his CV than Josh and Fury and Wilder put together. He's fought more game opponents than all of them put together. So, you know, he is a dangerous opponent. So, you know, if you are a promoter, you know, and you've got the world champion there, you know, you're going to say, do you know what? Yeah, let's try and bypass Dillian. You know, Dillian, you go do this and whatever. You know, it's boxing, unfortunately. This is the sport that we're in. I do agree, you know, I do think Dillian will be a world champion. Like I said, it's not bias. I just think he's got the mindset of an old school champion. He will fight anyone. I mean, anyone. He'll even fight me in his back garden. If it came to it, he'll fight anyone. I won't. See me on my bike. And I think that's the difference between him and the others. He's got that mentality of, I'll step in the ring with anyone. And you won't know if he's afraid or whatever, but you damn well know he's going to give it a go. And his left hook is one of the best in the game. You know, I talk about Danny Garcia's left hook all the time, but Dillian's left hook is bloody phenomenal. And, you know, out of those, you know, the names that we mentioned, you know, Fury and Joshua, you know, he gives them both problems. You know, whether he wins it or not, that's down to opinion. He gives them both problems. But for me, ultimately, at heavyweight boxing right now, you would want the two champions to fight. That would make the most sense. But unfortunately, because of the current climate, it has to be a stadium fight. It won't be a behind the doors fight. So we won't get it. But for me, you know, I think you're right, Faizal. He has to fight Povetkin again, just because he just needs to right that wrong. And knowing Dillian, you know, I know he's not sleeping. Every night he's dreaming of licking down Povetkin and righting that wrong. But no one could say, you know, when that man walks away from the sport, no one can't say he didn't give it his all. He's one of the few people, you know, whether you like him or not, he entertains you and he has a wicked fight. And, you know, even against the Povetkin fight, you know, I've never seen a fighter, you know, lose the way in which he did. And people may say it was the worst knockout they've ever seen or whatever. For him to just get up normally and say to Eddie, do you know what, can we make the fight again? That shows you a fighter. You know, some people cower away. Look at what Deontay did after losing to Fury. At one point, I saw him twerking. You know, he was doing madness. But, you know, Dillian was straight away, Eddie's in front of the press, like, Eddie, let's make the fight again. I want to go. For me, that's, like you said today with Ryan Garcia getting knocked down and coming back up. That's fighters. That's what we want. We want to see guys, you know, like that. So in a sense, you know, that's why I got a lot of respect for AJ after the Ruiz loss. Didn't say anything, just went away, worked, came back, avenged it. You know, for me, one of the best heavyweights I've, you know, ever seen, and I respect highly, is Lennox Lewis. And he always went back and avenged the people that beat him. Nassim Rackman, for me, was one of the best fights I saw after he lost the first time. To come back and beat Nassim Rackman the way in which he did, that shows a mental toughness, and not many people can do that. So hopefully, you know, in the next 18 months, we get this big fights that we're looking for. Otherwise, I agree with you, Faizal, the sport's just going to become a joke. People are just going to walk away from it and not give it, you know, the love and attention that it requires.
Question I want to ask you, Nick, do you see Dillian getting a war title shot through the WBC or for another organisation?
I think it will be through the WBC. I just think because they owe it to him. If he goes anywhere else, he has to go and fight people to then become a mandatory. You know, and I don't think anybody else in those other who are in those rankings will take him. You know, will want to take that fight. I can't see Usyk saying I'm going to fight Dillian. You know, as much as Usyk's a very good boxer, I don't think he's going to be, you know, the beast he thinks he is at heavyweight. I don't think he's an Evander Holyfield. I think he's a very good boxer technically, but I don't think he's got the size or power to trouble these big guys. Like, come on. I remember Evander Holyfield fighting Bo, and that was a fight. But in the end, Riddick Bowe's size made the difference. And, you know, Usyk doesn't have what Evander has. Evander was complete, you know. So I can't see Usyk taking that fight, nor can I see him going to fight like a Joe Joyce in the rankings either, because Joe Joyce won't take that. Joe Joyce is most probably set his path out and he knows who he's going after to get to his mandatory. So I think the WBC is the only viable option for him. And I think, you know, he wants to show the WBC and everybody else in the world, I'm coming for the best belt and I want it. I want to go at it. And I think that's just his mentality. I'm not speaking for him because I don't know what his view is, but if I were him, that's what I would be doing. I wouldn't sidestep or go another route. I've been here for 3 years. I showed I was the best, you know, apart from the champion in this division. Give me my shot. That's what I'd be like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one thing I'm worried about is that you're going to see someone like Fury, AJ have a few fights where maybe, and then one of them vacate the WBC and then Dillian maybe not fighting one of those elite fighters to become a world champion. That's the only thing for me what I'm a bit worried about. I want to see him. He deserves to go in there and fight Fury, AJ for the WBC title, or Deontay Wilder. And one thing I'm worried about is that these guys are going to duck him as long as possible, and maybe duck out from the sport, and then he's not going to get to fight one of these fights before he does become world champion.
Like I said earlier, Jermaine, I think he's got the best CV out of all of them. He can box, he can hit. You know, he's got a good IQ in the ring. If you were Fury or Joshua, would you really give him that opportunity? Like, if he had a world title already, they would fight him. Let's put it that way. Because he doesn't, and he's a mandatory. Nobody really ever wants to go against a mandatory. That's such a live wire. You know, when was the last time we saw, you know, a champion fight a mandatory who was hot? Like, when was the last time that happened in recent years? Like, I can't think of one. Like, I can't genuinely think of one. When the times we've seen good fights, it's because they're champions, and champions are fought champions. Apart from maybe Lopez, but Lopez wasn't even a mandatory because he had a world title at the time. So it's what you're bringing to the table, and then Dylan brings nothing but problems for these champions, and they're not willing to take it.
I want to ask you guys, obviously, I think Nando's gone, but one fight you would like to see made, obviously, we talk about the Joshua Fury fight, but in lower divisions, what one fight stands out for you this year that you want to see made happen if possible?
Bivol Beterbiev. Bivol Beterbiev is a war. Anyone who follows the light heavyweight division, that is an all-out brawl. You know, that's just for me. That's I can't believe there's no recognition. This is the problem with boxing, because you've got so many divisions, you've got so many belts, so many fighters. Nobody even knows about that. Well, I was speaking to my mate about it the other day. He goes, "Oh, who are they?" I was like, "You're kidding me, right? Don't ever talk to me about boxing again."
Wow.
Bivol Beterbiev is just, for me, if you want to watch a fight, I'm talking like a proper back garden fight. That's a fight I'd love to see. Could happen. I believe John Pascal's also got the WBA belt as well in that light heavyweight division. I believe Badu Jack's still around as well. Of course, Kovlev's not going anywhere. The light heavyweight division is very exciting. You know, you got Josh Buatsi coming up as well. But I do think, I've said for me, one of the fights I want to see in 2021 is Bivol Beterbiev. It'd be interesting to see because both hard hitting, both undefeated. You know, there's obviously, they've both come out and said they want to fight Canelo as well. I don't think Canelo would want to fight them. Their power is unbelievable. If you look at the fight with Gvozdyk, you could just see that power that Bivol holds. So that for me is, if you obviously the main fights like the Spence, the Crawfords, the Furies, the Joshuas, you know, the Saunders, the Canelos. But for me, if you want to look at one of the fights that you really do want to see, that's a fight you want to make. In Bivol Beterbiev, and that's a fight I'm hoping to see for 2021.
Nick?
For me, it's the Josh Taylor fight. That's the only fight I want to see. It's Josh Taylor. Is that I've got some respect for Josh. I just think he's unreal. Josh Taylor definitely, and Josh Warrington. For me, those two are. I think they're special. I like
Warren
them.
Stevenson's a good fight. I'd love to see that. Warren Stevenson.
I don't think Shakur will take that fight just yet.
Shaq's gone up in weight, isn't it? Shaq's gone up in another weight class.
Or Stevenson, it's just you never know what weight he's going to fight at. Is he going to fight at featherweight? Is he going to go up? There's even talks of him maybe even having a crack at lightweight. Shakur Stevenson, but I do believe this. You talk about a breakout star. Shakur Stevenson's the guy that I'm really looking for.
Definitely. I think out of all of them, all of these guys we mentioned today in terms of Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Tank, out of all of them, he is special.
Mentioned Andre Ward as well. So you
and
they recently split though as well, didn't they? Part ways. I
think he's still got new. Toka Khan Cleary a couple of weeks ago in mid-December, a very good performance. And if you know your boxing, Toka Khan Cleary is a good durable fight, and he put up a good performance. What about you, Nick? What fight are you looking to see this year? Out of all the elite fights,
obviously I've got a bias. I want to see Dillian fight in it, so obviously I just want to see Dillian do his thing. But like I said, for me, the one fight I want to see is Josh Taylor Ramirez. I think I'm after this undisputed thing. I just want it in any division, so I want that fight. And then I'll be honest with you, I do want to see Canelo back down at 147. Or I'd like him to go back down there and have a nice little tear up there. But ultimately, for me, the only fight I think I'm generally interested in is Terence Crawford and Spence. That's a genuine, for me, out of all the fighters and all the divisions, I think that's a genuine 50-50 fight. They both got their attributes, they both got their flaws, and I would love them to, get in that squared circle and, give us that historic fight that we're looking for. I don't want a Manny and Floyd where it goes years down the line and, they're towards the end of the careers and it's not the spectacle that everybody expects, but I'd like them to fight in their prime and do that now. But yeah,
guys,
so that's me.
Leon, we have to shoot off.
Thanks, guys, for coming on. Shout out to our sponsors again, IQ Boxing. Shout out to Dirty South and the Pugilist Magazine and Lightsout and yourself, obviously Nick and IQ Boxing again. Take care. It's a pound for pound boxing show. Doing that.
Take care, man.
Yes.